shows Find Your Own Voice, Lead from Within. With me today is Nick Motichka. Nick, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello. So, yes, my name is Nick. I am the founder of Flow State Designs, which is a clothing brand based in Canada. And specifically, I'm in Alberta, central Alberta, in between Calgary and Edmonton. And my brand is basically filling a gap in the market that I personally couldn't find for myself, which is a natural fiber product made locally and cool as hell, and then made with all of the um, taking into account the environment and everything else, and doing everything I can to minimize the impact. I mean, obviously, when you're producing a product, you're definitely taking, and you're not putting anything back into the earth. And so I'm trying to minimize the damage basically of the clothing industry, and then utilizing local workers that are paid a living wage and are subject to environmental controls and employment controls, and the energy of that is just in every product that I am and will produce. And I'm super excited to be almost launching with my first product. And prior to that, I was a police officer for 17 years, and today's topic really highlights basically my journey from policing to entrepreneurship. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nick. So, our topic today is speaking your truth and how it can change your life. Basically, we live in a society or in a world where there's so much destruction and we decide to reject our feelings and we don't speak our own truth. Some people do, like are people like us who have found ourselves, we speak the truth. And sometimes it's nice to basically be that person who is transparent and showing your vulnerability and speaking your own truth. It doesn't mean that you have to be arrogant. You shouldn't care about people's feelings. It means you speak your own truth in a loving and compassionate way, and basically reminding others as well at the same time that it's okay to be the person that you are. It's okay to be the person that you want to be, and speaking your own voice. Like in gossip talk shows, we help people find their own voice and lead from within, and that is speaking your own truth. So I'm really excited because Nick you chose this topic. So I just want you to explain to our audience why did you choose this topic, and basically what's the drive behind it. I know you wanted the audience to basically you wanted to empower the audience, but I'm sure there is a deep reason. Please tell us, explain.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I about 2.5 years ago, I started speaking my truth, and it has very much completely changed my life, and for the better. Absolutely. I went from living completely out of alignment to bringing my life into complete alignment, and it feels really good. So yeah, that's why I chose this topic. And I had some occurrences happen very recently, actually in the last couple of days, that really just opened my eyes to the possibilities of what can happen when you do speak your truth.
So much. Thank you so much. And so I just want to find out, like when you left your job because you decided to speak your own truth, and at work you were told to stop speaking your own truth, and uh, you decided to actually be the person that you want to be. Did speaking your own truth open at the doors of freedom, or what's the process? What happened?
Yeah, so it was quite a process for sure. So, like I said, about 2.5 years ago, I just felt this pull or some sort of a knowing that I needed to make some big changes in my life. And so for me, that started with a major diet change, and I started meditating regularly. And those things combined with some other things going on in my life at the time, but those are two of the main ones for sure. It led to me basically, well, realizing that a the night shifts and the shift work that I was working at the time in policing was literally killing me. I was working at the time, it was 4 12-hour night shifts in a row. And in the beginning of my career, when I was a young man, I was able to bounce back from night shifts and everything was fine. As I got older and with young kids, I found that especially after working four in a row, my sleep was just not it wasn't happening basically, and it was just compounding. So by the end of four in a row, so I wasn't really sleeping in between night shifts. I'd only get a few hours and then I'd be up and not able to fall back asleep. And then so that would happen every night. And then as that I got close to that fourth night shift, I was just useless. I wasn't any good at work. I wasn't any good at home. And then even into my days off, it would take me several days to recover, and then just to go right back into that cycle. And so I started speaking my truth by telling people, and specifically my doctor, about what was happening with me. And that led to me being restricted in terms of what time I was allowed to work to by my doctor. And then that led to a position change in policing. So at the time I was in what is called a gang suppression unit. So we would go into bars and licensed premises in the city that I was working in Calgary, Alberta. And there's legislation that prohibits basically anyone that's involved in organized crime from being in a licensed establishment. And the idea is, of course, that when there's not gang members in a bar, to potentially be seen by other gang members, and when that were to happen, there would be violence, and then everyone else in that bar would not be in a safe position to be in basically the crossfire between these two organized crime members. So the idea, of course, is to remove them from these big places where there's lots of people, congregating in a bar or in that sort of setting. And then when they're not there, everyone's safer. So by not being able to work night shifts, that position wasn't an option anymore, which worked fine for me. I was at the end of my time in that unit anyways. It had been a little over 4 years at that point. And so the police service I worked for found me a position working from home. And this was now moving into kind of the spring of 2020. So the pandemic was in full swing. So I was able to work from home on a laptop, not dealing with people directly. And it was amazing for me. I loved that part of it. I was about a little over 15 years into my policing career, and being able to kind of sit back and not be face to face with people in that confrontation and not arresting people and in that role was really good for me. And yeah, looking back now, there was definitely beyond my sleep. There was definitely signs of my mental health was deteriorating from all the traumas and everything that I'd collected during my policing career up to that point. But the first thing that I actually spoke my truth on was the sleep and how it was affecting me. And so I was working, like I said, from home, which was amazing for myself and my family. And then this is moving into now the summer of 2020. And that is when George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis. And that completely changed the online world for sure in policing. So I was responsible for responding to any messages that came into the police service I was working for and their social media. So anything that came in through Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, like I was the guy responding to that. There was me and one other officer in that unit at the time. And so that place went from amazing for me and great for my mental health to just the darkest, just awful place to be. And what people will say in that online space when they're behind a keyboard and, you know, not face to face was just, it was just incredible, to be in that position at that time. And then that was through we had a big defund the police movement in Canada. And then there was, of course, all the Black Lives Matter protests and whatnot. And it was just a really dark place to be a police officer in that online world at the time. And so it got really dark. And looking back, of course, it definitely affected me in a big way. And so I was able to push through basically that summer. And then in September of 2020, I experienced a situation where I had the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back one day at work, again, working from home on my laptop. And it was, I won't go into the specific details, but it was basically a girl who was reaching out for help. And it was like a kind of a suicidal threat sort of thing. And it was certainly not the most dynamic or most traumatic thing I've ever dealt with in policing by far, but it sent me into, I had a full breakdown at work. I wasn't able to do what I had always done in my life. And that was just push forward and just act and just, do what I had to do as a police officer to just deal with whatever situation was in front of me. I was at a point where my body and my entire being was just screaming out that it was time to deal with everything that I'd collected throughout my career, my traumas and everything. And so I took the notice. So thank you again, universe, for sending me that strong sign that I needed to deal with my stuff. And so I took advantage of all of the mental health helps and psychologists and all of that I was able to access through my employer. And then in so doing, it was the first time I'd ever, sat down with someone and truly spoke my truth. And so talked about what was going on with me and what had gone on in the past that had, what I believed led to my breakdown, which I don't call a breakdown anymore. It's actually a breakthrough. So at the time it felt chaotic and not good at all. Whereas with the benefit of hindsight now, it's exactly what needed to happen, because I would have never dealt with my stuff if I wouldn't have been forced to. So it was definitely a breakthrough for me, and I've been able to really move forward in a positive way from that. And so it was kind of a progress, of course. So now I spoke my truth on my hours, got my hours restricted, got a position that was a lot better for me, and then that position turned into a terrible place for me, and then started speaking my truth to psychologists and reaching out for the help that I needed. And then so this really changed. I started to see some big changes in my life at that point, for sure. So people are used to everyone just going through life and nodding and smiling and, oh, the weather's pretty good today or not, and not really ever talking about the truth or what's really going on with ourselves. And so that I've really found some people dropped out of my life that just weren't, I guess, ready to hear basically the touchy kind of stuff and the little more edgy conversation than just surface level stuff. And so that was definitely one thing that I noticed right away. And again, with the benefit of hindsight, that process is really necessary to kind of put a focus on the people that are important in our lives, and the people that fall out of our lives through that process are, while certainly still painful to go through that, it's it's happening for a reason, basically, is how I look at it. And so was really lucky to be in a marriage, and where my wife has been amazing, and just super supportive along the whole way, because I could see that in some situations where even speaking your truth to your partner would cause issues in your relationship. And I was super fortunate not to have that as my case, because I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you without her support. She's been amazing. And so so now I'm off of work, dealing with my stuff, speaking my truth. And this now leads into kind of when the vaccination rollout was happening full swing, and then the freedom movement started to happen here in Canada. And so in early 2022, I felt I felt really encouraged by what was happening in Canada with there was the freedom convoy. So the truckers in this country, not all, but a lot of them went to our nation's capital to protest the government's overreach, and the to basically asking for the end of the mandates that were happening, and the basically discrimination based on people's choice, whether they chose to be vaccinated or not. And I felt hopeful for the first time in a long time that there was other people like me that weren't feeling right about this, the way the government was trying to control the population. And then what happened here was the government used the police to basically stop peaceful protesters from peacefully protesting, which is a right that we all have in specifically in Canada, in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And as a police officer, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, what it is and will always be, it's the supreme law of the land and the country. And it tells me as a police officer what people's rights are, and then what I have to do and not do in order to when I'm dealing with people. Because if I breach someone's charter rights, there's remedies, and the remedy is that any evidence that's collected against an accused person is excluded. And so without evidence, there's no chance of a conviction. So basically, if your charter rights are breached by a police officer, whatever you're accused of doing, it goes away. And so I knew that right from day one in my policing career. And it was always really important to me to respect people's rights, because I saw them as important and fundamental. And now, with what was happening in the world, our own government was now using the police to go and breach people's charter rights. And that just felt terrible to me. And so one night in February of 2022, I wrote a 2-page entry in my journal, just talking about that exact thing. And it was for me, it was a kind of a call for other police officers to just think about what they were doing in moving into those protests and breaching people's charter rights for peacefully protesting. And that video, of course, got shared far and wide outside of the intended audience. And sorry, I kind of missed a part there. So I wrote that entry in my journal, and then I just had this nudge to video record it, myself reading it, which I did. And then after that, again, another nudge to post it in this chat that I was part of, that was with other like-minded police officers. So I posted it, woke up the next morning, and it had been shared very widely outside of my intended audience for that video. So speaking my truth, just calling it like it is, and from my perspective, was my only intention. I didn't go in with any grand intentions for this video to do anything other than just be a place where I could speak my truth. And so that led to the police service I worked for at the time. So I was off dealing with my PTSD, but I was still technically employed by them. And so I got a couple of phone calls that day, the day that the video was released, and then I got a registered letter that ordered me to basically cease and desist from speaking my truth. So now I'm in a position where I'm basically under a gag order where I'm not allowed to speak my truth. And in this journey leading up to this point, speaking my truth had been a positive thing. And now I was being ordered to not speak my truth. And so that felt not good at all. I can tell you that. And so, in the meantime, I had been able to find the help that I was desperately looking for and needed to deal with my PTSD. So I had done all of the traditional talk therapies and the eye movement stuff that they do to reprocess traumas, and had gotten maybe a little bit of distance relief from those traumas, but it wasn't where it wasn't affecting my day-to-day, my mood, and how I showed up in the world and how I talked to people. And it was, it just wasn't getting me where I needed to go. And so I, again, had this knowing or intuition, whatever you want to call it, that I needed help from plants. And so I sought out a shaman who is also a PhD psychologist, and I had a healing journey with psilocybin. And that was in early 2022. So coincidentally, it was I had my healing journey about 2 weeks before I recorded the video that ended up going viral. And again, I don't think that's a coincidence either to have my ultimate truth speaking happen after my healing journey. So through that healing journey, I'd been tested just prior to that by a psychologist and had PTSD, and it was on the severe side of the spectrum, I guess, if you want to call it that. And then had my healing journey later in January. My video came out in February, and then through my employer, they ordered a comprehensive psych assessment in March of 2022. And so severe PTSD January, March got retested, and I didn't even meet the criteria for a diagnosis anymore. So I had successfully dealt with my traumas and had in that place. And I'd love to talk about it someday too, if we were able to do a podcast on that. But I was able to process those traumas. I was able, with the help of the plants, was able to go to those places and just actually process all of the memories, all of it, just go back there. And instead of pushing those memories down, which is what I would always do up until that point, I willingly and without resistance just went to those places and felt compassion for myself and for everyone else that was involved in those situations. And I call it, I had radical Jesus level compassion for again, myself and for everyone involved in those situations. And then I was able to see it just from a different perspective too, in terms of that it wasn't even my trauma. I was just a witness to someone else's trauma. And by the nature of my position, I just had to go to these situations. And so I was just a witness to the very end of a crazy traumatic life for a lot of people. And so that perspective shift, and then just being able to finally not push that down and just, process it, that was a game changer. And so that's why I went from severe PTSD to having no diagnosis, is just because I was able to finally go there and take a hard look at those situations and just let them move through. Before that, I was just pushing it down anytime it came up, and that only had a lifespan up until my breakthrough. And so it was, again, exactly what needed to happen. And so now I was forced with a decision to either, because now I don't have a diagnosis, now my employer expected me to go back to work, and my benefits, being off work, dealing with my stuff, they stopped that day. And so I was in a position where I had to go back to policing or resign. And I just knew that I was doing really good. I was feeling really good. I have the relief that I was looking for the first time ever. And if I were to go back into policing, I knew that I'd just be back in this situation before
The
long.
same
And
problem where you started.
for sure, for sure. And so by this point, well, speaking my truth, I had really changed as a person, and really evolved. And so I knew I wouldn't be able to handle the job anymore, and it just wasn't in alignment either. So I kind of looked at it as I was choosing either a paycheck or my mental health. And for me, it wasn't even a choice, really. I only had one choice, and that was to resign. And so that's what I did. So I, again, knew that was what I needed to do, and so I spoke my truth and put my money where my mouth is, so to speak. And I resigned from the only career I'd ever known. So at that point, I'd been in law enforcement, specifically policing, for 17 years, and in enforcement related positions for over 20. So for over half my life, and my entire adult life had been spent in that world. And so it certainly wasn't real comfortable to give up that world, and that the security of it either, right? Like the stable income and the benefits and pensions and all the stuff that comes with it. But again, I just, if I were to have gone back, that would have been the opposite of speaking my truth, and it would have just it would have led to certainly not my highest outcome, that's for sure. And so speaking my truth has really drastically changed the courses of my life in the last couple of years. But I feel really good about where I'm headed, and the path that I'm on. And it's all because I started speaking my truth.
I love it when you say basically it has changed your life, because yes, it does change your life. And also you say you went to Jesus' love and compassion. And basically, I love Jesus's character in the Bible, that he was a man that he spoke the truth. He was honest. He was a loving man and compassionate man, and he still is. And he speaks the truth. And I think basically, when you live in this world, you have to speak your own truth. Uh, Unapologetic, you have to, because in order for you to, even the police, like when I watch George Floyd's video, it broke my heart, because in that moment you need a policeman. The family needed somebody that can speak for them, that can speak the truth. Normally the police will get scared and say, if I speak the truth, I will lose my job. So I'm glad that you had that courage to say, you know what, I'm done playing by the books. I was basically, because when you get employed to speak your own truth. When you are trained, they don't say sweep things under the carpet. They basically train you to speak your truth. But what happens is people don't. They see they go to work, they turn up at 9 to 5 job, they turn up at work, they see things are happening, they're not speaking up. They're like, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get involved. And when you empowering someone, it means speak the truth, even if it leads you to get in trouble, because you don't get employed to make friends, you get employed to do the work. you get employed to help. Basically, you guys, like as the policeman, you were the community dependent on you. And basically, I see, like sometimes when we watch the film and stuff, like sometimes what we see on the film is like, when the police says, "What am I going to tell the family? Tell them what they want to hear." It happens in real life. Basically, they don't actually speak the truth; they hide the truth. But sometimes it's nice to speak the truth, because when you speak the truth, you're changing someone's life. And like at Ghost Talk Shows, when we come here every single day, unapologetic, we are vulnerable. We speak about our problems. We speak about the life, the things that we have to go through to be where we are today, how we had to change our lives, how we have to actually go to therapist and seek help. Like you had to go to a psychologist and seek help. But if anyone that does not know you and they'll see your video, it goes viral, and they'll be like, "Oh, Nick," and then you start telling people what they want to hear. But the person, Nick, that empowering people, will tell people, "This has been my journey. I'm here today because I was able to speak the truth. I was able to find my own voice." And I think that is really, really an amazing thing, to be able to speak your own truth. Basically, that means you are like saying no to the things that you say yes, knowing that you're saying yes to basically not speaking up. And some people, they get covered by guilty and shame, where they're like, I don't want to get involved. For me, basically, if I have to speak the truth, I will speak the truth. My family, they know. My mom will say, never say a secret in front of Nomsa. Or sometimes, if people speak a secret, there's a difference between someone telling you a secret and saying, "Don't tell anyone." It means that information is meant for them. They are trusting you. But then there's a secret where people are gossiping. They sit there and they're wondering, making up stories about people and doing this and doing this. I went to home once. My uncle was working basically really, really hard. He moved in with my mom because my stepdad died. So he moved in with my mom. We have a big house. So my mom said, when he said he wanted to stay with my mom, we're like, "Oh, that's a good idea. She's lonely, so that's fine." And her daughter moved in as well. So they live there. So he all of a sudden starts working overtime. And they are wondering, why is he working overtime? He's never done this before. They are busy gossiping about my uncle, and I'm there. My mom goes, "Shh, she's here." So my uncle walks in. I'm like, "Uncle, they are talking about you. They want to know why you're working overtime. Are you having an affair?" That's what they want to know. "Could you please
Mm.
explain to them? Are you having an affair, or are you not having an affair?" And my uncle was, "No, I'm not having an affair. The work has just got really busy. And I've decided, because we do need the money, I've just decided to take on the extra shift so I can be able to have extra money when, after paying the bills, basically there is no money left." So that was his explanation. So I was like, "Here, guys, that's his explanation." So in
Mm.
that way, I was teaching them a lesson to say, never ever sit there and making up stories and wondering what would be. Always ask questions. That is speaking your own truth. That is fucking your own, finding your own voice. So that was that. And you had the courage to actually resign your own job and say, "You know what, this is who I stand for, this is what I believe in, and I'm going to do what I believe in." And what I believe in is to speak my own truth, to be the person that I've always known myself to be as a man. And you left that job. You knew that there was going to be an impact when it comes to bills and everything, but you knew that there will be a way. I will find a way. And you left your job. And I'm so happy. When I was talking to you the other day, when you said, "Nomsa, I was living in a huge house. I've decided to downsize and basically so I can live my life with my family. Because can you imagine you live in that huge house, you have all these benefits, you're earning money, good money, you have all these benefits, and in those benefits, basically, but you're unhappy. So for me, basically, I think it's a man with the courage. Basically, what you have done, you're showing us that things can be done only if you are willing to have that courage to become the person that you want to become. The not worrying about the unknown, because we worry about the unknown. What if I leave? How am I going to survive? How my children are going to survive? And I thank God that you also have a good wife that basically decided to stand by you and to basically to say, you know what, we can survive. And you are surviving. You're moving to a new home next Friday. I'm excited for you. And your basically your brand is coming up as well. Everything is coming together. It is amazing, but if somebody doesn't know you, they will just see you living this life. And I think it's important that people speak their own truth so we can empower other people and just help people to become who they want to become. So what basically I want to ask now is if there is someone, because you've been there, Nick, you've gone through the experience. If there is someone that is going through challenges and they're scared, they don't have the courage to speak their own truth, to face the unknown, because speaking your own truth, it means you'll be honest with yourself and say, I don't like this life that I'm living, and change it how you want it without worrying about what people think, what family members are going to think, what your friends are going to think, what your people at work are going to think. So if anyone is watching the video right now, what advice can you give them that helped you to be where you are today?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Absolutely is. And isn't it funny how we do that as humans? Is we make up stories and we make up what we think people's reaction is going to be to whatever we're thinking about doing or not doing. And and I found through this process that a huge chunk of the time, what we think or what we worry about the reaction being is actually not at all the case at all. Like it works out so much better than the story we make up in our head. So I'll just tell you a story here that really, I think, highlights that exact thing. And so through my journey, and then resigning, I was presented with the opportunity to really dive deep into my PTSD journey on a podcast recently. And so it was another former RCMP officer who retired, and he's out in BC. And I was connected through a mutual friend of ours, actually. So I appeared on his podcast, and the podcast was actually just released this week. And so I recorded it couple months ago, and I just spoke my truth. So I didn't at the time, I didn't think about who would listen to that podcast or anything of that sort. I just spoke my truth. And so in that, he asked me a lot of questions about like even why I became a police officer. And for me, a lot of self-reflection over the last few years has identified that I actually chose my career from my wounded inner child. And so as a kid, I didn't feel important or noticed or a priority by my parents. And so I think I chose a career. Well, number one, my dad was a police officer too. So I chose his career to try and like gain his approval, which is kind of misguided in my case because my dad hated his policing career. And so by choosing a career that he hated is probably not the best way to get approval of that person. But anyways, that's what I did. And so I just went right into that in this podcast. And then so it gets released this week, and it comes up on my social media and whatnot, and I'm just all of a sudden panicking, like, oh no, my parents are gonna listen to this thing, and this is how they're gonna find out about all of this stuff, because in our relationship, up until this point, yeah, you don't really talk about that sort of stuff. And so I was just kind of worried, a little bit sick here earlier this week. And then, so the night that the podcast came out, about just before 10 o'clock p.m., I got a phone call from my mom, and I answered the phone, and she told me that her and my dad had just listened to my podcast, and my heart kind of sank for a second. And then because I'd made up what I thought her reaction was going to be to that, basically learning all this stuff about her son, and I couldn't have been more wrong. So she was, I got the most amazing reaction from her. Like, just, one of, wasn't a selfish response at all. I was just like, oh, I didn't, we didn't know. We were just doing our best. Like, we're sorry that you felt that way, and that we're proud of you, and like, just all of the things that I wanted to hear is exactly what I got, instead of that story that I made up where it was a super negative response. And so, yeah, that would be my encouragement to people, is to, I mean, you're never going to be able to know what people's reaction is, of course, but through my experience, it has been so overwhelmingly positive that it's just so worth it. And the people that don't see the positive in you speaking your truth and just living in alignment, it's certainly not maybe easy at the time, but it's probably for the best to have those people and those relationships kind of, the priority of them it kind of gets reordered in that process. And when people are truly supportive of what you're doing, and are able to see through their own, biases and their own involvement in the situation, even potentially, those are the people you need in your life, and those are the important relationships. And so it's sort of a necessary but a little bit painful process to go through. But again, it's just so overwhelmingly positive that I can't encourage it enough, really. It's been amazing.
Glad that your basically your parents as well were so proud, because that's what basically our parents are for, to support us. And also, even if you don't have supportive parents, you don't have to be scared to actually do the things that you love to do and speak up, speak your own truth. And basically, because when you're speaking your own truth, you're finding yourself, you are leading your life. And I'm also glad that you had made up this story, this reaction story in your head, that this is how my parents are going to basically react to the situation, and without you knowing how they are going to react. But your parents surprised you by basically being very, very supportive. And I think sometimes it's nice that even if we don't get the reaction that we're gonna get with our family, it doesn't mean we have to stop speaking our own truth. So you have to basically get rid of that fear and have the courage basically to actually share your story, because when you're speaking your own truth, you're sharing your story. At the same time, you're basically empowering somebody, because if someone is basically watching your video and realizing what it means, self-worth, what is self-worth, what it means to speak your own truth unapologetic, and basically sharing your story, not in an opinion way. And I think it does help someone within it to say, actually, I like it. When you trigger someone emotionally, they want to know how you did it. So that, I'm sure when your parents listened to the video, and everyone that listened to that podcast, their reaction was like, because Angie didn't know, she didn't know you, but when you came here, she came here, she, after we finished, she was like, oh, I know Nick, but I don't know where I know him from. And then she remembered that she saw the video of you online. She was like, oh, that's where I know him, the story. So it's nice sometimes to basically to get out there and share your story, because you never know. I was listening to Tony Robbins and Dean Gracias the other day, and Dino was saying, can you imagine? And then you die, you meet your creator, the creator of the earth. The creator meets you halfway, you're going to heaven. And he says, before we enter heaven, I have something to show you. What kind of a woman or what kind of a man you would have become. And then he shows you this video, an amazing video. You would have been a billionaire, you would have empowered his people, you would have helped so many people, helped people survive, but you didn't do it. You lived a miserable life. And then he was like, can you imagine how would that make you feel? And basically what he was trying to say was, everyone has a purpose on earth. We are not just born to be to be nothing. We are born to be something. We are born to basically to empower others. We are born by empowering people. It means you speak your own truth, and you empower people, and just do the things that you would do without fearing what people think. And it's like we come here to go to talk shows. Our agenda, basically, there's no agenda behind it. The agenda is I turn up at a talk show, I help somebody who's going through something. If I can reach that one person, and I'll be very, very happy. I was talking to Amanda the other day, and she was like, "No, said, do you know why sometimes we get to 2,000 views or sometimes?" And I was like, "I don't know." But to be honest with you, if somebody views my video and they get something out of it, that's what I care about. If I can reach that person, what that one person. There was a girl on Facebook, she's one of my friends, we used to sing in London, go to London, sing together. And she said, oh no, so I was watching a video, Break the Chains, but I didn't know I was watching, it was you, and that video made me cry. And I was like, oh yeah. And she was like, yeah, I'm not that very good when it comes to relationship. I'm not that very good. I struggle with the men picking the right man. So I've actually given up. And those are the people that we want to reach. Like when we come here to go to talk shows, it's the people that we want to reach. We want to make sure that we are empowering them. And it just touched me that I wouldn't know if she hadn't told me, I wouldn't know that she watched the video and she benefited out of it. And there are so many people that comes back and say, I love who goes to talk shows. But if anyone who doesn't know, they would think, oh, we only have 500 views. That's nothing. But to me, it's just having that person that we reach, that changing people's lives. There are people who make videos on YouTube. I've watched their video. They've changed my life and I've never met them. There's a pastor that I follow on YouTube that he has completely changed my life. How I see life, completely is actually, he has changed my life within. That what I thought about myself that I wasn't worthy, now I see myself that I am actually worthy. And when I have problems, I can actually, when you were saying, I can, you went to that Jesus loving and compassion moment. When I have problems, I can actually, because he's teaching that everything. Like, I don't know whether you follow Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins, when he speaks, he says everything that psychology basically comes from the Bible, science comes from the Bible. So when I start linking everything, it does help me with my character to actually not worry about what people think about me. It has made me realize that in life we don't do things, we worry about what people think. And we don't, even those people that have their own opinion about negative opinion about us, it means they have some things to deal with. But instead of us worrying about them, we just need to speak our own truth and just keep going, help others. So for me, basically, I would say, for what in life, in my experience, in seeing the police, how they work, I just love uh, your decisions. I love your choice. I have my pastor as well. She's a ex policeman, and she speaks her own truth. And she says she didn't do well in the police department because she was somebody who spoke her own truth.
Yeah.
And when you speak your own truth, you basically you don't do well, because the people normally they want to tell you, they want you to tell them what they want to hear, and which is it doesn't work. So I'm really, really happy that you find that courage to actually uh, find your self-worth, and believe in yourself and do the things without being ashamed, without wanting people to approve your life and also the behavior. So how would you, basically, before we leave, basically, how would you give the advice to give someone, because you left the police department and you still have this confidence and you're growing each and every day. It's like since you started on Ghost Talk shows, every time I meet you, you're basically growing. So how would you basically give advice to someone to maintain that power of staying in their truth and changing their lives to grow, not worrying about what people think? What advice could you give somebody?
Yeah, it's I think the only real advice that I can give is just to be an example, I guess, of what can happen when you do, because um, it it's really, I mean, it's so individual for each person. Everyone's circumstances are so different, and everything. I don't know if there's a one size fits all piece, but the only thing I just keep going back to and keep trying to do is just not worrying, like you said, not worrying about what people think, doing what feels good in my heart, and that has really led me to make decisions in my life that have put me on this course. And I think that just being an example in the world is the best thing that I can do, and that anyone can do, yourself included for sure, is to just be that example and let people, if it resonates with them, if my story resonates with someone, then that's amazing. If I can influence someone to get some help with some trauma stuff, that is incredible. And yeah, I don't care about if it yeah, a video like this gets 10 views or 3,000. Like, if one of those 10 get something out of it, then that's all that matters. And I love I love Tony Robbins and Dean there too. And I love that sentiment too, is that looking back at your life and with regret because you didn't speak your truth and you didn't listen to your intuition and you didn't listen to what felt good in your heart, that would be, in my mind, that is hell. Because those regrets and not, not ever even giving it a try, that that to me would be the worst. And so that's why I've made that conscious decision to do what exactly feels good to me, to open up those doors and those possibilities, and just to, yeah, let go. I in every piece of my clothing, on the tag, so at the bottom it says, I relax, I let go, my life is in perfect flow. So it's a reminder to me every time I put on a piece of my clothing, and once I send it out to the world, I want that to be a reminder to people, is just to let go a little bit and stop holding on so tight and controlling the outcomes, and worrying about what people's reaction is going to be, and just let life happen and flow, and don't fight things so much, as just to let, if an opportunity presents itself and it feels good to you, even if even if it's a little bit outside your comfort zone, like it coming on a podcast like this. Certainly, yeah, a couple years ago, this would have been the last thing I would have been interested in doing. But because it feels, I get some resistance to it. That to me at this point is like, that's my sign. Okay, you need to do this. You need to push through that and move into that outside your comfort zone, because there is no growth in the comfort zone. And so I would say, just if anyone can grab any nuggets of wisdom out of that, that would be great. But so yeah, yeah, it's tough for me to come up with a specific piece of advice other than kind of just my example, I guess.
I love that. I love that, Nick. I love the tag of your clothes. What does it say?
It's, I relax, I
I
let
relax,
go, I
I
let
let
go.
go.
My life
Yeah,
is in perfect flow.
I love that. I just wanted you to repeat it so people can just listen to it. I love it, and I hope your clothing line is gonna do well, and I believe that, and I trust that. And if anyone is watching, basically speaking your own truth, basically it means basically you speak your own truth without worrying about, you don't have to worry about what people think about your life, because even if you don't speak your own truth, people will always have opinions about you, and those opinions, they are not necessarily true about you. So you yourself, you know your story, you know what you've been through, and just speak your own truth, impact somebody else, empower somebody else out there. So hopefully, Ghosty Talk Show's family, when you watch this video, hopefully you follow Nick and you follow other coaches at Ghosty Talk Shows, and follow me as well. And just get in touch if you feel that you have some things that you want to get out, and you want to find your own voice and lead from within. uh, just get it out there and get in touch. We are here Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. UK time, and also there's a free consultation. Any coach that you want to speak to, they'll be able to give you a 30 minutes of their time just to find out and get to know you, uh, and then take it from there. So live with grace, everyone. See you tomorrow. God bless.